How much longer will this crisis go on, and when do you think we will see that
I don't
restoration?
think it will last as long as 2035. This is a matter of opinion, my own judgment, but I don't see it going beyond 2030, 32 or 33 at the very latest.
Hello and welcome to Church and State with Stephen Cox. This is a show dedicated to all things Catholicism, all things politics, and everything in between. Well, today we have a very special guest who you have probably heard of before, Father Paul Kramer. He is a widely known traditional Catholic priest who has written many books and articles on an array of topics, including Our Lady of Fatima, prophecy, and the question of Benedict's so-called resignation, as well as the Bergoglio years. Father Kramer was also longtime friends with the late Father Nicholas Gruner, the founder of the Fatima Center. So as you can imagine, we'll have a lot to talk about today. I want to now welcome to the show Father Paul Kramer. Thank you, Father, for being here.
Well, it's great to be here.
I think a lot of people are interested in what you're up to these days, if you're able to share with us where you're at, what you're doing with your ministry, because they've read your books over the past many years that you've been really a public figure. I myself appreciated your book, The Mystery of Iniquity. I'll bring that up in just a second. But can you get us up to speed as to where you're at and what you're doing?
Well, as is generally the case, after you reach a certain age, priests generally retire at age 70. So I'm in that category now. So I'm retired, but I don't retire. You don't retire from being a priest. I've all my life. I've already made up my mind that as long as I'm sufficiently able-bodied, I continue my ministry in the priesthood, no matter what my age will be.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm officially retired, but I'm still carrying on my priesthood ministry in every way that I can.
Yeah, and I see it says you're the president of Servants of Jesus and Mary. Can you explain that title for us?
That is an organization that merged with the Canadian Fatima Apostolate of Father Nicholas Gruner. I believe it was 1988 when the official merger took place. They became two affiliated corporations, one apostolate, one organization, two corporations, one Canadian and one American. And so we were, the Servants of Jesus and Mary was registered in New York State as the Fatima Center as early as 1994.
Mm-hmm.
So we were together jointly operating this apostolate, Servants of Jesus and Mary, and the National Pilgrim Virgin of Canada. We were together one Fatima apostolate up until shortly after the death of Father Nicholas Gruner. God rest his soul. And so that's the history of our organization. We were known together as the Fatima Center for all those decades. Shortly after 1988, he became president. He was a board member. He was a board of directors member since 1988. President shortly thereafter, and that was together with the Canadian Apostolate. Together they were the Fatima Center. And Father Gruner was the president, and I am his successor as president of his American Fatima Apostolate. And that's the Servants of Jesus and Mary.
Great. And here's a picture of Father Gruner himself. Is your assessment of where things are at in the church today? I mean, are we living in the time that Blessed Aunt Catherine Emmerich predicted? And again, where is the church? Is it just where we have to find our all we have is the priest that we cling to? Is that what we kind of have to do now?
There is a unanimity of prophecy on this point. It's not just Blessed Aunt Catherine Emmerich. This is in the Third Secret of Fatima, by the way. I recall hearing that it was sometime in the 1950s, and this explains why you had the multiple envelopes. In one of them, envelope inside another envelope, and one is taped shut. That was a mystery until I found doing my research. I found out that Pope Pius XII had opened the Third Secret of Fatima. That was published in a newspaper in Canada. Pope Pius XII opened the secret.
Yes.
That was published. That fact
Yes.
was published. That he opened the secret and he read it.
Mhm.
And the first words that came out of his mouth was, "Pauvre Canada, poor Canada."
Huh.
And so he did open the secret. He did read the secret. Now,
What does that mean, do you think?
well, that's another question, because what is important? We're talking about the church now.
Mhm.
And Padre Pio, Canonized saint, had confided to Father Gabriele Amort that Our Lady had revealed the third secret to him.
Mhm.
And he said, "Gabriele, you understand that Satan has entered the very bosom of the church, and soon there will be a counterfeit church." Now, that's the third secret of Fatima. Padre Pio tells us that. And when Pius XII opened the secret, it wasn't publicized. There was not a press release like at the time of John the 23rd. There was a press release that it was opened, it was read, but then it was resealed, and it's not going to be.
What year did that happen? Was that in the late 50s, early pontificate, or when did he read that?
Are you talking about John the 23rd or Pius XII?
Pius XII.
I'm not sure exactly of the year. I've heard somebody say 1957, but then the story in the Canadian newspaper was before then. So it could be a lapse of memory of the person who related the story. But one thing is certain: the priest who accompanied Cardinal Samuel Stritch to Rome was a priest by the name of Father Lawrence Emmett Hughes. He accompanied Cardinal Stritch to Rome when Pius XII opened the secret and read it.
Mhm.
And he couldn't reveal the whole secret, just like Father Malachi Martin couldn't reveal the whole secret. But there was something so important there that he warned a group of people, that he was with a group of his extended family in Los Angeles. I think that was in 1957 when he said this. And he said that in the third secret, it foretells that there's going to be a liturgical movement, a liturgical reform. He says, have nothing to do with that, because by stages, this is going to lead up to the suppression, to the abolition of the Holy Mass itself. That the Holy Mass itself, the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass, will be eventually suppressed.
That's what the third secret says, or implies, essentially.
That's what it said. That's what it said. This is what Cardinal Stritch confided to his assistant at the time, this Father Hughes, who revealed that aspect of the secret. And Padre Pio said that there would be this counterfeit church, that Satan would be at the head of a counterfeit church.
Mm-hmm.
Now we go back to 1861, long before Fatima. Cardinal Henry Edward Manning spoke on this topic.
Mm-hmm.
He said that Rome, this was before Vatican City existed as an entity, so people didn't refer to the Vatican before the Vatican, before the Lateran Treaty set up the Vatican as a Vatican City state. The word the Vatican was more of an expression. It wasn't such an institution as the Vatican, meaning the church hierarchy, the papal curia. That was they usually referred to that as Rome,
mm-hmm.
ecclesiastical Rome.
Mm-hmm.
So back in 1861, Cardinal Manning didn't speak of the Vatican. Mm-hmm. He spoke of Rome. But the clear context, he's talking about ecclesiastical Rome, the Roman curia, the hierarchy. He says the true vicar of Christ will be driven out of Rome, that Rome will revert. In other words, the Vatican will embrace paganism.
Yeah,
the true church,
the whore of Babylon, essentially. Yeah, isn't that what it's become?
That's right.
Yeah,
the true church will. He says that will become invisible. It will appear as though the church had been swept from the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, and to make it clear, he said, this is not his own opinion. He said, this is taught in unison by the ancient fathers, and he quotes several of the more salient passages of the ancient fathers on this point, because you have some radical fundamentalists like John Salza, who will insist that the church is going to remain is evidently visible throughout all times, even through this great exceptional time of persecution, when the ancient fathers were in unison saying that it will appear as though the church had disappeared from the face of the earth.
Yeah. I have a few questions about the third secret still, though. That's so curious. I never heard Pius XII having been quoted as saying "poor Canada." I'm really intrigued by that. I don't know if there's anything more you can share about that. But I guess my other question is, why didn't he consecrate Russia if he read the secret and he foresaw what was said in it? And then why, if it is now, as you're saying, about liturgy and revolution in the liturgy, I mean, if this event happened in 57, that's 1 year before his own death when he had poor health, but 2 years after the 55 reforms, which should have alerted him to say, hey, this Annibale Bonini guy is not any good. So I know there's a couple of questions there, but what are your thoughts on any of those?
Well, regarding the consecration of Russia, he was misled. The one who was translating and explaining the request of Our Lady of Fatima regarding the consecration of Russia happened to be a Jesuit, and he didn't think it was opportune. The Jesuit didn't think it was opportune to be too explicit about the consecration, namely of Russia, by the bishops together with the Pope. He thought that wouldn't be very opportune, as if, well, I mean, he didn't believe in the power of God, this Jesuit, because all those people who would say, well, if you consecrate Russia, that Russia is going to retaliate. This is when Russia was communist. Russia was Soviet. And the standard reply was that, well, if the Pope and the bishops were to solemnly consecrate Russia, well, communist Russia is going to retaliate terribly against the church. Now, this is simply proves that these people didn't believe in Our Lady of Fatima. They didn't believe her message, even though this message was authenticated with the most stupendous miracle after biblical times, the great miracle of the sun.
Did Pius XII see that, by the way, from his balcony? Isn't that the report? He saw the miracle himself.
He saw something like it. Whether it was the exact same miracle or not, that I don't know, because I don't know what exactly what he saw, but he saw something to that effect. And there have been similar manifestations of that same nature. I remember back in April of 1980 when Bruno Cornacchiola of Rome, the seer of the famous apparition now just across from the Tre Fontane monastery, where he converted from his heresy and became a devout Catholic. When there was a mass celebrated at that sanctuary in April of it was a Sunday, if I can remember the date, I think it was the 13th of April. I think it was the 13th of April, a Sunday, 1980, that Cornacchiola was present at that mass. It was it was at the sanctuary, at the place that cited the apparition, and there was a miracle like the miracle of the sun at Fatima that took place there on that day.
Okay. So
again, I wasn't at Fatima, so I don't know. I can't compare the one miracle with the other, but the one in Fatima was especially noteworthy because the mud was ankle deep and the land dried up. And people were just saturated with water, and the rain was pouring rain on everyone there. It was miserable, and within just a few minutes, their clothes were dry and clean. The ground there was no more mud. It was dry earth again. And this is the caliber of miracle that took place. And Our Lady said in July she was going to work a miracle so that everyone would believe. But obviously, too many mitred heads in Rome didn't believe, and too many theologians didn't believe, because they thought that that's an empty promise that Our Lady made, that Russia will convert when this consecration is performed, the solemn and public consecration of Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, done by the Pope together with all the bishops of the world. Heaven, God Himself, promises peace.
Mhm.
the conversion of Russia and world peace.
Mhm.
But they don't believe that promise because they were saying, and some still say that uh, this will destroy ecumenical relations with the Orthodox, with the Russian Orthodox. It will stir up hostility of Russia against the church. They're basically saying that Our Lady of Fatima cannot be trusted.
Or they know the result that would happen and they don't want it because the church was infiltrated and they want war and they want death and they want to do the work of the Antichrist, essentially.
Well, they want unity and diversity. They want a synodal church in interfaith communion with all the other churches of the world. That's what they want. The last thing on earth that they want is for Russia to convert to the Catholic faith, and for Russia, like St. Paul, the apostle of the nations, that Russia will be the beacon of faith and light to convert the nations of the world. Convert the nations of the world. They don't want that. These Masonic cardinals and bishops, that's the last thing in the world that they want. They don't want the apostolic tradition. They don't want that old faith. They want the new religion.
You wrote about this in your book, The Devil's Final Battle, which I read many years ago. This came out in 2002, and you discuss the Third Secret. You talk about global events, even 9/11 at that time. And I believe in this book, Father, this is where I actually heard this particular version of the Third Secret. This is from Novus Ordo Watch. This is a purported version of the Third Secret that a French priest in 1994 heard. And I want to read it and get your take on it. 'Cause again, I believe it was in the back of your book where I first heard this. This is allegedly what this priest in the 1990s heard. There will be a wicked council planned and prepared that will change the countenance of the church. Many will lose the faith. Confusion will reign everywhere, etc. A schism will tear apart the holy tunic of my son. This will be the end times foretold in the Holy Scriptures and recalled to memory by me in many places. The abomination will reach its peak, etc. Do you recall this particular secret, this edition of it, and what do you make of that one?
With many of these purported secrets, they are clearly written by people who are privy to the contents of the secret. So it may not be the verbatim text exactly as Our Lady revealed it to the children, but the content of what she revealed is going to be there. Like Cardinal Ottaviani wrote one of these apocryphal secrets. He knew he was one of the cardinals who was there present when the secret was revealed. He knew what was in the secret, but in order to circumvent and not violate the oath of secrecy, he had to give an apocryphal version of the secret that actually tells you in substance what the secret is. So that's usually what we're dealing with these kind of secrets, because I can say that what that version of the secret says is the essential content, is part of the essential content of the Third Secret of Fatima, without any doubt.
Did Father Gruner read it, and did he tell you the contents himself? And then did you? Obviously, the secret the Vatican released in the year 2000, that wasn't the version. That was the correct one.
That was only like the first part of the secret was the vision of hell, and the second part of the secret was the Our Lady's commentary, Our Lady explaining the vision of hell. The third secret is the same way. With the third secret, you have the vision, and that vision of the third secret, that's what was published in 2000. But Our Lady's commentary on the secret, that was withheld. That has not been published.
And has anybody read that? Father Gruner, yourself, or anybody else?
Pope Benedict, of course, when he was cardinal, he admitted that he had read that. He had read the secret. He was asked point blank in 1984, his interview, he said, have you read the secret? He said, yes, I have read it. So yes, Cardinal Ratzinger at the time, the future Pope Benedict XVI, had read the secret. And that's very interesting in this context, of course, that when his former seminary professor, university professor, Dr. Ingo Dollinger, a very serious priest, by the way, who went to confession 58 times to Padre Pio. That's the caliber of man that was Dr. Ingo Dollinger. Uh, Dr. Dollinger had a conversation with Pope Benedict, or Cardinal Ratzinger, I should say. He was not yet Pope. Cardinal Ratzinger. Shortly after the publication of the Vision of the Third Secret in June of 2000. Now, there were a number of things that Dollinger had revealed about the Third Secret. He had said to many people, what are some of the points of content of the Third Secret of Fatima? He was the rector of the Immaculate Heart of Mary Seminary in Anápolis, Goiás State, Brazil. Some of the young deacons and priests were told details about what Cardinal Ratzinger had revealed to him about the Third Secret. And was there more to the Third Secret than what was published in June of 2000? Well, Dr. Dollinger was very well aware of the fact that Cardinal Ratzinger had given him specific points about what is in the Third Secret. I don't recall exactly all the points now because it's a good number. A couple of decades have passed since I visited. Since I went to Brazil, talked to the young priests. Since I went to Germany and I talked to Dr. Dollinger. So I don't remember all the details, but this much I do know. This much I recall clearly. The evil counsel that Our Lady warned about not making changes in the rite of Mass, that definitely. Is there more to the Third Secret? But my first question was to Dr. Dollinger was, when he told me, he said, I confronted Ratzinger to his face. And he explained that they were concelebrating a Mass. And he said, during the Mass, this question was burning in his mind about what else is in the secret, because what was revealed in June of 2000 does not mention those specific points that Cardinal Ratzinger very explicitly pointed point by point some of the things that are in that Third Secret, and they weren't there. Those points weren't mentioned there in that Vision of the Third Secret, in that book called the Message of Fatima, which purportedly revealed the entire secret in June of 2000. Mm-hmm. And that was the problem in Dr. Dollinger's mind. And so his question was to Cardinal Ratzinger was, how can you say that the whole secret is revealed because of what you told me 9 years ago? And Ratzinger was cornered. And that's why Dollinger told me, I confronted Ratzinger to his face. So at that
what did he say? What did Ratzinger say to that?
Ratzinger just he was at a loss, and he just blurted out. He said in German, he said, "Wirklich gibt es da noch etwas," which is really there's more to it there. There's more there. Okay. Really, there's more there in the secret. There's more there. Wirklich gibt es da noch etwas.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you make of? I know Dr. Peter Hoynowski has been making some pretty interesting investigations into fake Sister Lucy. Do you know of that theory, and do you subscribe to it, that she was somehow deposed and there was a fake person put instead of her around that time?
Again, my mind is not clear on all the details, but certainly the forensics exam, I think, leads us to believe rather conclusively that there is an identity crisis between the one purported to be Sister Lucy and the historical individual, Sister Lucia dos Santos, because as the forensic expert said, the only thing these two individuals have in common is the religious habit.
That's a great point. Yep. Yeah, I think that's I think Dr. Hoynowski is doing some great work there.
Yeah, I think he has settled that question.
Yeah, I agree.
He settled that question.
So in that case, then we're living with a sort of industry of fake news about this coming from the Vatican, which again would raise the question. It's purposefully done. But to sort of shift gears here a bit, well, let me ask you one last question about this topic, because there are some who will say that Malachi Martin, you mentioned him earlier, Father, is a double agent, or at least once upon a time he was working for the bad guys, if you will. What's your overall assessment of Father Malachi Martin?
Having known him personally, I can say this much. Regardless about what his connections were, sure, he was known as progressive during the time of the council, and that's really not pertinent to this question, which is when he speaks about the secret of Fatima. He didn't have to fabricate anything. He didn't have to tell any tall tales. He knew the secret. He received the knowledge of the secret he got from Cardinal Bea, without a doubt, just like Father Hughes learned the content of the secret from Cardinal Stritch. And that was the one thing that even if one can legitimately doubt other things he said on other topics, this topic, he was privy to the content of the third secret, and he had no reason to mislead anyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How did you know him? In the early 90s, 80s, or a long time ago?
In the 90s, it was only, I think, 1996. The manuscript of my book on the Mass, the suicide of altering the faith and the liturgy, was brought to him, and he was really very impressed with the book. In fact, he called me several times on the phone. He called me several times when he heard that I had come back to the United States. He wanted to talk to me, and again, he couldn't get enough of talking about that book. So he called me several times. He talked to me several times about the book. So that's how I got to know him. So I knew him 96 and 97. I knew him. So the very last couple of years of his life is when I knew him.
Yeah, I've been to his gravesite in New York, upstate New York there, and I always found it odd why he was buried next to his housekeeper. But I don't know. There's a lot of theories about Malachi Martin. We'll probably keep that for another show, though, because that's a whole nother topic. Just a couple last questions for you, Father. Again, thanks for being here. It's been a great, enlightening, educational experience. I think our viewers are really enjoying the show. You knew Bishop Williamson as well. Bishop Williamson passed away not too long ago. What are your memories of him, and what was his sort of role, do you think, in this time period when there's so few truth tellers that really are left in this time?
I have not known such a courageous bishop as Bishop Williamson. He was a modern day Athanasius. He really was. I remember I first met him. He was still Father Williamson, and he asked me my opinion. Should Archbishop Lefebvre ordain? Should he consecrate bishops? This was before any of the four men that were consecrated were made bishops. Mm-hmm. So, but he asked me that question. What do you think? Do you think Archbishop Lefebvre should consecrate bishops? Mm-hmm. And I explained to him my reasons why he should consecrate bishops. I had no idea that I was talking to one of the men that he was going to consecrate a bishop. I had no idea. But he trusted my judgment enough that he asked me that question.
Now, my understanding is that he was the one bishop that Lefebvre nominated when Rome asked him for one bishop. Can you confirm that? Are you aware of that?
No, I never heard that, but it would not surprise me.
Yeah, it's a sort of a maybe it's a claim often made in resistance circles. I know among others who have said that. So I'm going off what I'm hearing from them. But I think that I wouldn't be surprised either. Yeah, Bishop Williamson. I think. Did you go to his funeral at all, or it was over there in the UK? I know.
I would. I really wanted to, but I had suffered a hand injury and I couldn't carry luggage or anything like that, and I just couldn't make it. So I prayed. I prayed for him at my mass, and interesting. He was during after his stroke, and when he was hovering between life and death. I was praying for him every day at mass, in the memento of the living, and unbeknownst to me, just after he had passed into eternity, I celebrated the mass, and at the memento, I made in the canon of the mass, I mentioned his name.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, and right at that moment of the mass, I felt his spiritual presence in the chapel as I was on the altar, mentioning his name in the memento of the living. And the thought came to my mind: I better check. I better check my email, because if I'm feeling his presence like that,
Mm-hmm.
that could be that this is his soul, that his departed soul had visited me uh, 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 with his presence. That had happened with another person a couple of years earlier. So I have experienced that phenomenon before, with a departed soul. So as soon as I finished mass, I got up my smartphone, and there it was. He had just passed.
Incredible.
So yes, he was a dear friend, and I was so sorry to see him depart, but I could not make it to his funeral.
Well, with his passing, as well as your dear friend, late friend Father Gruner's passing not too many years ago, it does seem as if that post-Vatican II generation, and even with Benedict's own death as well, that generation now has done its hard work, and God has taken them to their reward, especially Bishop Williamson. What do you see for the younger folks? I mean, what is your assessment of the traditional movement these days? Vigano obviously is still a voice crying out, but he's not getting any younger. You're, like you said, semi-retired now, still writing books though, which is what we need. But what is your overall assessment of the next generation, if you will? I mean, the SSPX, they need bishops. There's a lot of bishops out there elsewhere throughout Europe, etc., that are tied to the resistance. But I'll leave it at that. What is your view of things?
Well, we are now approaching the very end of this period of history. The post-council, the Counterfeit Church. I remember back in the 1970s, I read an article. I don't know if it was a pamphlet or an article. It's too long ago. We're talking about roughly 50 years ago when I read this. And recently, I read it again. I found it on the internet. And the most interesting thing about it is it's word for word exactly what I read like 50 years ago. So there's no doubt in my mind. This was long before the internet when I first read it. It's a hard copy edition. It's coming from San Giovanni Rotondo, I believe. A publication printed in San Giovanni Rotondo by the Capuchin Fathers back in those days, back in the 70s. And the story was a group of pilgrims came to San Giovanni Rotondo and asked Padre Pio, will they live to see the triumph of the Immaculate Heart of Mary? And Padre Pio said, you will not live to see the triumph. I will not live to see the triumph. But then he pointed to some little boys about 10 years old. They're all roughly 10 years old. He pointed at them and he said, but they will see the triumph. Now, 1962 plus 10, these are 10-year-old kids, 10-year-old boys. They were born about 1952, the year that I was born. So my generation will see the triumph, according to Padre Pio, who is, I think, the greatest saint of the 20th century, the man who received the secret from Our Lady herself, the saint who not only, unlike other saints who have been given the grace of seeing apparitions of Our Lady, as Padre Pio once said, in his cell in San Giovanni Rotondo. He said, "Here she doesn't appear. Here she walks."
Beautiful.
That's the caliber of saint,
Yeah.
is Padre Pio, and he's a man who knew the third secret of Fatima as well as anyone could know it. He received it from Our Lady herself, and that was what he said about when the triumph will take place.
Do you have any suspicions, perhaps is the best term, as to when or how this might happen? There's been talk amongst many of my friends. They compare the church post-Vatican II, 1965, to the Babylonian captivity, and that lasted 70 years. 70 years since the close of Vatican II would be 2035. Is that right? How much longer will this crisis go on, and when do you think we will see that
I don't think it will last as long as 2035. I think perhaps 29, 30, 31, 32. Beyond that, this is a matter of opinion, my own judgment, but I don't see it going beyond 2030, 32 or 33 at the very latest. I think is when we will see the triumph.
And why is that, Father?
Well, if I'm still around, 2033, I'll be 81 years old. And Padre Pio said people my age will live to see the secret. No one lives forever. So,
yes.
Even if I have longevity to live to my mother's age, 91, still, generally speaking, people my age aren't going to be living much past 80, early 80s, 85 at the most. And so it's going to be in the early 2030s. We can reasonably expect, at the very latest, the triumph will take place then. But people my age, people of my generation, will see the triumph of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. That means the consecration and conversion of Russia, world peace, the conversion of the nations to the Catholic faith. That will be that will take place for the people of my generation. So this latest new generation of traditional Catholics, this will be the last of those who resist against the counterfeit church of synodalism in Vatican II, because there will be the return to tradition, the church in the full glory of the apostolic traditions and Roman traditions, and with the Eastern churches, with the Greek and Russian tradition, they will be in full communion with the Catholic Church. They will be in the full glory of the ancient traditions of the Eastern churches. That will take place in our day. We're not talking about 20 years. We're not talking about 50 years. We're talking about just a few years from now. This is 2025. Less than 10 years. This will all happen in less than 10 years, as I think is a reasonable judgment. I think it's reasonably certain in less than 10 years, we will see that triumph.
If that's true, then Leo, presumably, barring some severe medical or accidental situation, would still be in charge of the Vatican. And we still have to get to that time, though, right? That's 4 or 5 years away. What do you suspect we will be facing over those next 4 or 5 years? Is this the time of the Antichrist who's coming? There's a war going on in the Middle East. Netanyahu seems to be on a mission to destroy as many persons as possible and to build greater Israel and potentially the Third Temple. How will the next 5 years look to you?
There's a unanimity of prophecy that there will be a third world war. Our Lady revealed to Blessed Elena Aiello, that Russia will march across all of Europe. Russia will battle America with secret weapons. She uses the word secret weapons. Armi segrete, which is secret weapons. Russia has weaponry that is so superior to the American weapons that the United States does not have a chance against Russia, China, North Korea, Iran. Those four powers completely outclass militarily the NATO allies. That's why it is so insane the way the Western leaders, especially the French and British, the way they are so hysterically promoting aggression against Russia. The weaker side should not be doing that, because they're going to get clobbered. And Our Lady said that Russia will invade all of Europe. And I hear people saying, well, they think Ukraine is winning the war. This is nonsense. Russia is not going to fight against the West in this Ukrainian war forever. I liken it to what General MacArthur wanted to do during the Korean War. He knew it was just an absurd idea to fight against the communist regime of China in North Korea, limiting the combat to that geographical area limited to North Korea. That he wanted to take the war to China. And the United States in that time could easily have defeated communist China. Very easily could have defeated communist China. People would say, well, you'd risk a world war, that Russia would intervene. No, Russia would never have intervened. We already know that because of the communications between Mao Zedong and it was Stalin. It was still Stalin at the time. Stalin. Mao actually requested Soviet assistance, and Stalin's reply was, "My hands are full. My hands are completely full right now with Eastern Europe. I can't help you. Mm-hmm. You're on your own." So he told the communist Chinese that as far as any war with the Western allies, that Mao is on his own. He's not going to get any assistance from the Soviet Union. Now, MacArthur wanted to take the war into China and definitively defeat the communists. And that would have successfully ended the war there. But instead, Truman removed MacArthur, and the fighting was limited to the Korean Peninsula, and we know how that ended. It ended in basically what a stalemate, which is effectively a loss of the war. But it ended in a stalemate, and Putin is not going to make that kind of mistake. This man has a military mind. People think he's a KGB man. Well, his main career was military intelligence. He was always, first and foremost, a GRU man. And it was as a GRU officer that he became head of the KGB. But he was always GRU. That's Soviet military intelligence before he became Russian military intelligence. But he was always military intelligence. He understands enough about warfare that the way the West is aggressively pursuing this war against Russia, using Ukraine as a staging area for the attacks on Russia. Putin is not such an imbecile that he's going to limit his retaliation to fighting on Ukrainian territory. He's going to do exactly what MacArthur wanted to do. And unlike MacArthur, who had to worry about a president who could fire him, Putin is the president. So there is no president who can fire President Putin. So if Putin decides, as commander-in-chief, that he is going to retaliate against the West, the aggression that they overthrew the Ukrainian government back in 2014 to install a pro-Western, pro-NATO government to be aggressive against Russia, to pursue the policy of the project of the New American Century, which goes back all the way to the George W. Bush administration, which was they wanted to partition Russia and basically divide Russia up and break it up into little countries, make an end of Russia entirely.
Yes.
So Putin understands perfectly that the survival of Russia as a nation depends on not allowing the Western allies to defeat Russia, because that means the end of Russia. So what Putin is going to do as the West becomes more aggressive against Russia, using Ukraine as a staging area for attacking Russia, to wage war against Russia, Putin will respond by escalating the war, expanding it to all of Europe. He will invade all of Europe. He will take all of Europe. He will take it very quickly. It will be a blitzkrieg.
Now, is it true that Father Gruner visited Russia ever? And I think Francis also spoke with Putin himself, and Putin asked about the Our Lady of Fatima, and Francis demurred on the subject, and he said, "We don't talk about that."
Yeah. Well, my mind is vague on the details now, but Francis did not want to. Francis was not interested in that kind of a discussion. But this I can say. Prophecy is very clear. Russia, there will be the attack. Russia will invade Europe. Saint Luigi Orione spoke of how this war will affect the United States. Because Our Lady said to Blessed Elena Aiello about the invasion of Europe, Russia will invade Europe. She said, Russia will battle America with secret weapons. But it was Saint Luigi Orione who gave us this very important detail in his prophecy. He said that millions of Americans, because of the devastation and destruction in North America, millions will flee to South America, many to Argentina, and they will transfer. They will basically emigrate to Argentina by the millions, because the United States is going to be so devastated by a tremendous war. It's going to be a very destructive war. It's going to devastate North America.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, because I recall Bishop Williamson having actually given quite a few words of praise to Putin for fighting, wokeism and defending generally like a sort of Christian view of the family, etc. And I think he gave a sermon in Poland when he consecrated Bishop Stopnicki, who was one of the resistance bishops, and he was saying, look, like the bad guys is the West, really. It's not necessarily Putin. So I don't know if he was sharing what you're saying about Russia going into Europe and invading, because it does seem the West is trying to provoke that almost. And maybe you're saying that
the West is trying to provoke Russia, but they don't know. In their madness, they don't understand that they are provoking a giant who is going to slaughter them.
I have not seen. I've seen Putin exercise restraint, though, over the last many years.
That's right.
Putin, so it's hard for me to say like I agree with all of that. Again, I haven't read the prophecies you're talking about, but it's hard for me to think he wants to go and do all that. I think he does want multipolarity and a Europe for Europe, Russia for Russia, etc. But I could be wrong.
Yes, he does. That's what he wanted. But the thing is, his hand is going to be forced. If the Western propaganda is nonsense, they compare Putin to Hitler as if he's an expansionist. He's a psychopath who wants to conquer the world. This is just blatant propaganda. It's nonsense. If Putin wanted to take Europe and fight North America, he could already have done it, and he could have defeated. But he could have won the war already. He could have done it if he wanted to. He would have already done it. Putin has wanted to keep peace and order in the world, but the West responds with hostility, and with not just hostility, but with the criminal intentions of breaking up Russia, partitioning it, and forming a new group of countries out of the former Russian Federation. That's what they've had in mind. Putin knows very well that it's in their documents. It's in the official documents that were published more than 20 years ago, that this was the intention. American foreign policy was ordered toward this intention of bringing this about. Putin knows they want to destroy Russia. They want to conquer Russia and take it over. And so Putin knows that in spite of wanting to keep peace, not wanting war, he's been very patient. He's been incredibly patient. But when push comes to shove, he's going to push back, and he's going to push back hard. And when he does, due to the very nature of the kind of war that it's going to be a very destructive war. There was a holy nun and a seer who, Mother Aimee, I can't remember I can't remember, from Malestroit, I think was the town she was from. Mother Aimee of Malestroit. She, some of her prophecies have been very remarkably fulfilled. And one of the things she said was that the Russian occupation in Europe, she was speaking specifically about France, she said it's going to be a brutal occupation, be a very brutal occupation. But she said it will last less than a year. So that's what we're looking at. Devastation in North America, the annihilation of Canada. Padre Pio did speak on one occasion. He said a North American country is going to be completely annihilated. He didn't, in that particular occasion, he didn't say which one, but we know from Pope Pius XII, quoted by those who were present in the Vatican when he opened the Third Secret of Fatima, he referred to Canada.
What role do you think Israel is playing in all this? It seems obviously they are blackmailing the entire Western world with all their intelligence, and they're inciting the conflict in the Middle East still. It seems that the U.S.'s alliance with Israel is really leading the charge in this. And fortunately, though, however, there's a lot of young people politically in the U.S. There's a lot of people who are calling out the Zionist lobby, and potentially there'll be a breakup at some point in the future. But for the moment, it seems Israel has a stranglehold on the U.S. and the West. Do you see they playing a significant role in provoking all this? As Father Fahy said, some say Father Fahy said, years ago, that organized naturalism and the forces of Antichrist will come to a situation, potentially the one that we are seeing right now.
Yeah, well, I think you've summed that up pretty accurately there. The role of Israel in making all the worst events happen now in international politics, the geopolitical crisis that we see coming to a head at the present time. Israel plays, unfortunately, a very great role, in a very culpable role in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense to me that those who rejected Christ would have a particular role to play in this moment when it seems Antichrist is either, as St. Pius X once said, coming soon, or at least are doing his bidding. So we'll definitely. What do you advise people to do, Father? Last question for you today. Again, thanks for being here. In these years ahead, is it to do the First Friday for Saturday devotions? Daily rosary? Bishop Williamson was big on saying 15 decades a day. What is your spiritual advice?
15 decades of the rosary for Saturdays, for example. And I think it was Padre Pio. What did he say? Pray, hope, and don't worry.
Sounds good advice to me.
Prayer is the ultimate weapon.
Amen. Well, if you could say a Mass for us and our viewers, that'd be, I'm sure, greatly appreciated. Everyone loves you here that watch this show, and please keep up the great work, and we look forward to your next book.
Definitely. I'll keep you working my Mass intentions, and you can count on that.
Well, thank you so much, Father, for being here. Again, Father Paul Kramer, everybody, get his books on Amazon. I'll put the links in the show notes today. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and God bless.